Hello, Star Lovelies. It's a great time to be a soul. Today we're talking about.
Hey there, we are looking at celebrity star peaks, and today we're going to focus on Selena Gomez. Now, I'm doing these celebrity star peaks, number one, because they're fun, but number two, so that you can get an idea of how the stars come together. And when you work with someone like me, how you get to know what is in your path, what is there for success, what is there for love, for money, for leadership, for family, for any blocks that you have, any really good luck charms that you have, what your strengths are, your hidden talents, what your past, soul DNA is. I can see some ancestry things. I mean, honestly, the stars continue to give a plethora of information. I've joked with some of my clients who've been with me since 2018 or 2020. Now that's either 5 to 7 years. I could look at their stars from now until forever and find new material depending upon what lens we go through. So that's super exciting. Now, I'm only going to touch on human design in the least little bit in these star peaks because I use human design as an underpinning for the stars because I'm an astrologer first. The other thing I want to say about astrology is I do use Western astrology and I do the evolutionary method, which looks at the soul destiny and the soul karma through the elliptic points from the moon. And I also use the Plutonian soul wounding energy to give more information to that. So I've studied with Stephen Forrest. He's my mentor. He is the founder of evolutionary astrology with Jeffrey Wolf Green. Jeffrey ended up going and using Pluto as the front-facing piece of information, whereas Stephen used the nodes from the moon as the front-facing information. I've leaned more towards Stephen. He's much more about the potential and about the optimistic infinite possibilities, and that is my jam. But again, Pluto gives so much information, and Pluto is where you go to retrieve your soul. And so each one is really helpful to look at. What are those unconscious blocks? What are the things that you brought in with you that you're not even aware of? And how can you become aware of them? And so when I'm going through that malefic energy, I also look at Saturn, and that's where I find your genius. And I look at Mars, and that's where I find your bravery. So those are all the things that you're looking at. You're saying, I know I have things that are inhibiting me, but I don't really know why. Or I have a little bit of a glimmer, but I'm not really sure of the information. And then, of course, there's more of those strengths that you have and the hidden talents that you have and those underpinnings that you've said, oh, I absolutely am going to be the best person in language, or I'm going to be the best storyteller. And I'm going into Selena's information a little bit. And I'm going to be a leader in some way. And yet I am going to have some things that those really easy talents are going to be super beneficial for. But then, you know what? Not so much when I want to open up different aspects of my life. So when I walk into somebody's stars, I literally walk into them. So I get your birth information, and then I get a beautiful star chart. And that's great. And like other astrologers, I'm looking at angles, and I'm looking at energies, and I'm looking at characteristics through the signs, and I'm looking at the behavior through the houses. And yet I go probably 4 steps either deeper or different than other astrologers. We're all unique. That's beautiful. I've always been about that infinite possibility. I've always about you be able to live to your full potential. So I take that lens. And so when I look at Selena Gomez, and she was born on July 22nd, 1992 at 7:19 a.m. in Grand Prairie, Texas. This is public information. I'm sure there have been a bunch of astrologers that have done her information and all the things. So here's what I don't adore about this. I don't adore this because I kind of know some things about Selena Gomez. I do only because, and I'm going to date myself, my daughter watched Wizard of Waverly Place on Disney when she was little. So we watched it together, and Selena Gomez was the star, and so I knew a little bit about her. I knew, Katie had little fangirl sparkles in her eyes when it came to Selena, and so she followed their love affair with Justin Bieber, and I know that she has lupus, and unfortunately. And I know that I've seen her. I think she's a singer too, and I've seen her now. She's on the Food Network, and she has her own show, and she likes cooking. And so I've heard her speak a few times about how she'd love to have romance in her life or whatever. So the reason why I say that it's unfortunate, because when I go into somebody's stars, I usually know almost nothing about them. I would have had one or two conversations with you, but I purposely do not do any sort of looking you up at all before I walk in your stars. I let your stars tell me all the things that your soul wants you to know. And so maybe I have known you for, a few months. Maybe you're in a group with me, or I've come across you, or maybe we've done a live together or something. And that's the way I'm looking at this particular celebrity, because, I know a few things about her. But for the most part, once I decided to do these celebrity star peaks, and once I picked a few people to do, I will not look online at all, because I want it to be as clean as it possibly can be. So with that, I'm going to dive right into her stars. And again, when I'm doing this, I would love for you to be open to, not only is this interesting information, but wow, the stars can tell me all these things about me. And am I working with somebody on that? Would it be helpful to me to do so? How can the stars actually lead me to more soul satisfying success? So, without further ado, when you look at Selena's stars, it's interesting because she's got most of her star energies from an angle with the planet's perspective underneath the horizon line. And what does that mean? It means that her inner life is really important to her soul in this lifetime. And I'll be honest with you, I do see that a lot with a lot of people who have very big external lives. It's super interesting that way. And then I'll say to them, oh, guess what? You're going to go through an inner exploration that's super, super deep. So one thing I don't know if Selena Gomez does anything in the spiritual, in the energetic, in the Eastern practices realm, but it would be really beneficial if she did, because not only is her sun in the 12th house of she's on the cusp of Cancer. She's literally only 5 minutes away from being a Leo with that July 22nd birthday in that 1992 year. So Leo must have on July 22nd, the sun must have gone into Leo at that time. Selena just happened to be born in the morning, so she's at that cuspy end of Cancer. Cancer is a very internal sign. It's home, it's family, it's roots, ancestry. Think about a Cancer and that clam of a shell that it has around it, right? And so there is this defense mechanism that happens. Selena chose to have her sun be in the 12th house. The 12th house is very spiritual. That's why I'm saying this. Very spiritual house, very, very much about finding hidden talents and hidden treasure. And when I see people's sun in the 12th house, I'll often say to them, are you going on a treasure hunt to find pieces of yourself that you either take for granted because it's just so natural to you, you don't even think that it's a strength, or you haven't discovered about yourself then yet? And I will then able to go to their stars and tell them all these things about themselves that they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. So there is some hidden aspect. So if you've chosen to have your son born in the 12th house, you want to be uncovering, revealing, liberating, letting go. Those are very much energies of the 12th house. With Selena being so cuspy, an astrologer could read her sun sign as two different ways. An astrologer could read her sun sign as Cancerian, and because it's on that cusp, or she has a tremendous amount of energy in Leo, which is her ascendant and which is in her first house. She's got Mercury there, she's got Venus there, she has Chiron there. So it's not a stellium because it's not more than five planets, but it is a lot of energy. And when I look, she doesn't really have any bulked energy like this anywhere else. And Leo's own ruler is the sun. So that's why I'm talking about this right now. So Leo is, because it's the ascendant, it's the ruler of the chart. And because it's that, it's also, she's so cuspy with that Leo energy. I'll be honest with you, if I didn't know that she was read as Cancer online, and again, I didn't read anybody else's interpretation, I didn't do any of that. When I called her up, I saw something, must have been AI generated or Google generated that said, oh, she's a Cancer. So I'm going to honor that. Even though, honestly, if she were my client, I wouldn't. I would go in and I would say that, yes, your son is technically in Cancer. So we're going to open that energy for you and we're going to respect that. And we're also going to talk about the evolving that you go through in life in the evolutionary way and honor that you have so much Leo energy. Would it be a loss if you didn't do and if astrologer didn't say that the Leo sun was really prevalent? No, because she has so much Leo energy. So that's why I'm gonna leave it like this. If she didn't have any other leading Leo energy, I would press it further. But she does. She's got her Venus right there. She has Mercury in retrograde there. She's got Chiron there that's kissing her Venus. So what does that mean? That means that Leo, the sun, the fire, the leader, the performer, the celebrity, the clown, that really genuine, vulnerable sign is incredibly prevalent in Selena's life. So a lot of times when I see Leo energy, I see it as yes, Leos are outward and they're gregarious and they're typically on stages in some way, shape, or form. They've got a lot of expression. They're very creative. They want to perform in some way. However, they are incredibly vulnerable because Leo's number one goal other than opening up to joy and having a joyful heart, which that's part of Selena's soul destiny, which is why I'm saying it so soon, um, is for them to be seen, heard, and known for themselves individually. So weirdly, I'm going to say something really weird. Like I do also know, I think I read somewhere briefly that Selena went past her billionaire status at some point. I don't know in the last year or so. And again, I didn't know I was going to do celebrity star peaks, and I didn't know I was going to choose her. So I probably read two sentences when I wouldn't have done that otherwise. But for her to be known as an actor, for her to be known as a host of a show, for her to be known, and I think singing, I'm not even sure, and then for her to be known as a billionaire is actually terrible for Selena's soul. Selena's soul would much rather her be known for Selena. What is she like? What are her hobbies? What does she come into the world to do? How does she, feel when she's alone and sitting in silence? Does she have pets? Does she want to have pets? Does she like to garden? I'm just trying to say things that aren't obvious. That's what her soul is yearning for. So she's got this incredible, like unsatiable need to be known for herself. And I'll be honest with you, she's not going to find that on the stage. Now she's got her moon in Aries. So a moon in Aries in the ninth house. That's one of the few things that she's got above the line. That when I say that, up underneath the surface, she has Venus and Mercury, and she's got Chiron, and she has her Jupiter, and she has her Pluto, and she has her soul destiny, and she has Uranus, and she has Neptune. I counted, that's like 8 signatures that she has that's underneath the surface that wants her to have a very reflective, soulful life. Now, she does have things above the surface, but 2 of those energies are right at the horizon, her sun and her genius in Saturn. And so I'll talk more about those because especially Saturn is really huge in her chart. Above the line, she does have her moon. So she has her heart in that ninth house. So for her to travel, for her to understand other cultures, for her to be an igniter, a spark in the world matters. But it matters for her to do that in a very strategic, philosophical, almost a little bit like advisory way versus being a superstar and people following her just because of who she is. She also has her bravery. She's got Mars up there in the 10th house in Taurus. So singing, if again, I think she does, but like if that's true, speaking is really important. Her words really matter. And it's the resonance of them because this is Taurian. So for her to be able to speak from her soul, to speak from her toes, to be able to speak things that really matter, that will be natural and will be not simple, but really straightforward and with some transparency here. Now, does she need to tell her story? Like, I don't know if she has a autobiography. I'm not sure. Yes, but no. So, yes, if she wants to be seen, heard, and known with her own voice. But again, I'm thinking that if she doesn't sing, she might be writing songs. For her to write her own scripts, for her to write her own lyrics, for her to write her own and tell her own stories is really important. And again, to do it in a she does not have to become spiritual, woo-woo, crazy person. But for her to really go into the depths, I'll say that for healing it is, but for her to go into the depths of going through her ancestry, going to her roots, understanding the earth and understanding the kingdoms. Like I'm looking at plant medicine and animal medicine and crystalline medicine. The sacred geometry medicine would be so helpful for her, not only from a physical perspective, but from a mental and an emotional and a spiritual one. So her to have beautiful relationship with nature. I know, again, I've seen her on the Food Network. I hope she does explore food in a way that is not only healing because it's satiating, but also sensory as well. So the sensors would be really good for her. Now, I know that I'm looking at this in the 10th house. I haven't forgotten where I am. However, I'm also not ignoring her other energy, right? So when I say that for her to be brave and for her to be traveling and cross-cultural and finding the meaning of life as a philosopher, I'm also looking at that Mars there because it requires incredibly bravery for her to do that. And with anytime somebody has their moon in Aries, I always call them Braveheart because it's not easy to have your moon in Aries. Your moon wants to be that succor, that sweet, beautiful hug at home and cuddling up with a soft pillow and a really good book. And then there's Aries saying, you've got to be out and loud and proud and really be igniting the world. They're not an easy combination. So with that, I just don't want to lose the thread here that she's got a soul of a warrior for a very meaningful life. Now we can look and say, I don't know what age she was when she became an actor, but child actor, she's only in her early 30s and she's a billionaire, right? Like, I mean, clearly anybody by any definition of success, it would be quote unquote, Selena Gomez is an incredible success. When you look at the soul though, really, is she? Does she have that deep, abiding, beloved, cherished love that she's yearning for? Does she have anybody who just loves her because she's her? Does she have really good support system and friends that are, compatriots or comrades because she, can call them at 2 a.m. and they're not going to be at her behest because of what she's done in her life, but because she's just her. This is her soul yearning. Now, she does have a beautiful way of attracting people in droves in her life for anything that she talks about, anything that she does on a stage. It's right here. She also has Chiron here, though. So Chiron is about healing, and there's almost no daylight between Venus there and Chiron. And that's in Leo. So to be able to have her own identity and to really wear her self-worth and to be herself no matter what, to not gonna kind of forgo anything because of her creative talents, but to be able to find joy in them and just do them just because and not care what anybody else thinks. Now, as she gets older, hopefully that's the stance that she's going to take because it's really important for her to do that. From a good luck charm perspective, she has incredible luck with money. Her Jupiter's right there in the second house. That's the house of money. It's in Virgo, though. So I would say be really detailed, be really analytical, make sure that you're, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Anybody that she uses for financial advisory in any way, shape, or form, she's going to want to make sure she has her arms around it. She's want to get somebody who's pretty persnickety about it. She's not going to ever want to be like, let go and I don't care about it. I don't even look at it. I have no idea what's going on. That would not bring her good luck. Not that it would be bad luck, but it wouldn't be great luck for her. So hopefully she's really close to her money management. And hopefully she doesn't use those markers as ways to measure success. And guess what? Every single person on the planet that is, searching for doing better, that is a measure of success. But hopefully she can use that Jupiter energy to boost her up to say, what things can I do where I feel like the inspirer or the motivator or what just lights me up just because. Now, there could be a great amount of charitable contribution that would fill her to no end, but she wouldn't want to do it in order to be able to gain recognition or gain anything. It would be infinitely better for her to do it anonymously and just because. And so guess what? If she wants to save the giraffes somewhere and yet people are saying to her, you know what, there's poverty and there's, whatever else, yes, and yes, but is even a better phrase because she should do this based on anything that gives her joy. And if she wants to see a smiley giraffe face, then she should do whatever she wants to do to see a smiley giraffe face. Um, she has Pluto in the fourth house in Scorpio. So Pluto is where you gain your soul, you regain pieces of yourself. And in Scorpio, so anybody born between 1984 and 1994, or 1995 technically, is going to have their Pluto in Scorpio. This is like intensified. It is like the uncomfortable, unfamiliar, like you're unwanted, like the taboo, like you're like, oh, for crying out loud, do we have to bring this up? When you think of the decade of that time, AIDS was very prevalent. Like you think of like those things that we don't want to talk about, the things we don't want to look at. This generation, it's only 11 years. It's a shorter cycle for Pluto just because of Pluto's elliptic path around the sun, but it's so intense. We're really thankful that it was really a shorter one than the normal 25 years. But here she has Pluto at 20 degrees. And so she does have a squaring off with how she communicates, with how she attracts others, and a squaring off with her genius, which is Saturn in Aquarius in the seventh house. So relationship is a sticking point for her. The way she communicates, the way she attracts people, the way she falls in love, the way she stays in love is a wounding for her. And why? When I look at Pluto in the fourth house, which I also have Pluto in the fourth house, I'm a completely different age, completely different sign, but I can appreciate the depths of her soul that she wants to explore. So every single thing ancestral, soul DNA, anything with the mysteries. So Akashic records, palmistry, astrology, going on soul retrievals, working with shamans would be really helpful for her to regain pieces of her soul. Would it help her in health? Maybe, maybe not. That's something that's a whole different sign. She's got Neptune and Uranus in the sixth house in Capricorn. It does have to do with her soul identity. That's why I'm bracketing these together. Because there can be with that emotional healing and that spiritual healing that can be physical healing, and with physical healing that could be those other things too. So anytime I see Neptune in the sixth house, especially with Uranus, this is where things are cyclic. They go very like up and down, and they can be shocking, and they can be unpredictable, and they can be hidden because Neptune hides everything. With Uranus right there, Uranus is like, I want to bring it to the surface and I want to deal with it. And then Neptune hides it. And then so again and again, I do know that she has lupus. If I didn't know her, I would say, you know what? Be careful for anything that might be hidden. Be careful for things that might be like jarring in your ability to schedule things, to make plans, to be able to look at that strategy. Because when I look at her soul destiny, it is all about strategy. And guess what? Anytime we set ourselves up, our soul says, guess what? I'm going to choose things that are going to be really challenging for you so you'll address them so that you will be able to achieve your soul destiny. When I see charts where they're just kind of off in the side, it's really hard because there's no texture to it. There's no import. There's no necessity. And, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So Selena's chart is not like that. Selena's chart is like, oh, I'm going to rock the house on this. Like, I am going to definitely be strategic. I'm going to be seeking joy. I'm going to be able to fall in love with myself again and again and again and again. I'm going to be exploring and seeking. I'm going to have an insatiable desire for experience. This is all Sagittarius energy. That's where her soul destiny is in the fifth house, about self-expression, about being true to myself, about taking calculated risk, about having faith in life. And again, this pleasure-seeking joy. And when you look at the Pluto in the fourth house, this very much a wise elder energy with it. And so when I see that and I see like, wow. And then when I know a glimmer of, I don't know how old she was when she was a child star, but I bet she was pretty young. I bet she had responsibility for family when it came to money and when it came to security. I bet that she had a moral compass that was either incredibly welcomed, but again, putting her in that adult role versus her childhood role, or, hey, gee, don't talk about that because that is taboo. So I don't know how much truth and honesty she could actually have when she was younger. She desperately needed it. She has tremendous moral courage. She's got a great moral compass. She's an adult before her time. She's very self-reliant. However, that doesn't help when you're looking at that fifth house, that wonder, that childlike, beautiful energy of being able to rediscover yourself or rediscover the world over and over again. Because for her to discover her ancient truths, her own karma, for her to be able to trust herself at the deepest level, she gathers pieces of herself, and it is magnificent. She is no joke. She's a badass. She's been around for a million years. She's had a ton of past lives. She's been on this earth. She's an ancient soul. She's a remembrant of those ancient truths. She's one of the divine feminine. I mean, she's starseed, whatever you want to say that kind of triggers you to recognize, like, holy crap, she has all that in a bag of donuts when you look at her from a soul perspective. She's no joke. She's incredibly deep, like the depths, fathoms, legions under the ocean, if you want to, kind of get some sort of relation with that. I don't know. Again, I don't know what she's done in the world other than what I just told you about the glimmers. It would be really great for her. Again, this is just for herself to explore all these types of things. And does she have to bring them out into the world? Only if she wants to, only if it's something that it's like, I just can't help myself. When I look at her soul calling, her vocation, as I said before, it is about being brave out in the world, but it's about the meaning of life. It's not a transformative, I've got to help people transform their lives. She's not in that advisory capacity at all, but she can be in that I am a guide, I am a mentor, I am a role model. That is very much in her energy. With age, she's going to get that naturally, but she is a wise elder. So she does, it's not surprising. Here I am, I'm way older than she is, and I kind of find her fascinating. When I picked celebrities, I'll be honest with you, some of them I don't even know, and I did that purposely. But with her, I started with her. I'm kind of fascinated by her. That's what she holds. And I've lived way longer in this lifetime than she has. But yet I'm fascinated by her. And I can't say that about a lot of people. Like, I don't hold this whole celebrity thing. For me to do this is kind of a big deal for me because I'm almost like, eh. But to be able to demonstrate, like, this kind of goes back to Selena too. Like, I'm able to demonstrate something that you can look up online. Like, I'm not reading for people that you don't know, that you could say, I don't know if that's true or not. Right. I don't know how that could be true or not. So again, with Selena, to do it because it will satisfy her own definition of exploring the meaning of life and finding joy and be able to fall in love with her life again and again. That's the reason. Now, when I go into her arc of intimacy, I'm looking at a few houses and I'm looking at what's in houses. So for her to fall in love, she falls in love in a very like leap of faith kind of way. Like, oh my God, I fell in love. I believe in love at first sight. I'm going to just make a quick, like, not even a calculated risk. I'm just going to leap off and throw myself off the cliff here and just going to be in love. Hopefully as she grows older, she does that to the extent that she says, sure, that would be great. I'm going to be open-hearted. I'm going to be open-minded about this. I'm going to say yes. And yet I hope for herself she moves very quickly into that sixth house of Capricorn, because Capricorn is about that maturity, is about that responsibility, is about that commitment. Now, she's got complicating energy here because she's got Uranus and uh, Neptune right there. And that's where I'm saying it's that hidden, that cyclic, that unexpected. So that's where her having ever changing careers and routines and lots of freedom in her work is perfect for her. That would kind of suck in a relationship, though, unless she organized it that way. Unless they both had, huge independence and they had freedom in that way. And unless they had a really firm commitment to each other from a very aligned way. Capricorn is a great energy to have for that loyalty, for that steadfastness, for the longevity. So Capricorns fall in love for life. And that's where she very much, it's in her second house of the arc of intimacy. She falls in love, like fleeing herself off the cliff. But within 5 or 6 weeks, she knows, oh, whether this is going to work or not. And again, hopefully she gives herself permission to be able to accept the freedom and to be able to accept some difference, that it's going to look like an original, unconventional. It's like go into her seventh house, it's an Aquarius. And there's tremendous independence and tremendous freedom. And for somebody who has Pluto in the fourth house, it's really difficult to appreciate the difference between self-reliance and intimacy. And those seem like they're almost antithetical because you're like self-reliance. I'm going to just only do things by myself. I'm not going to really get close to anybody. But there's no codependency here. There's none. There's no codependency in her chart at all. So that's kind of good. But then does she attract people who are codependent? I don't know. Hopefully not, because she'd be really easy to do that because she just kind of take them under her wing. She's got enough energy. She's got enough, she's got enough stamina. She's got enough intelligence. She's got enough emotional quotient. She could totally do that really easily. Maybe this is why her soul said, you know what, but physically, I'm not going to let you do that. Physically, I'm going to have it so that you must rely on other people. You must lean into them. You must learn what partnership looks like, because her genius is here. When I say genius, her Saturn is here, which means it's really tough. It's really hard. One of her lifelong quests is to understand the commitment in relationship with the freedom and independence aspect. That's what seems antithetical. How are we both incredibly close to each other and in partnership? Well, her only partnership relationship that would work is interdependence. And how many interdependent relationships do you know of? Do we have incredible role models to follow? Is this something that people do really well? Do people understand that I am whole and you are whole and we come together and we, through that coalition almost that you form, there's compromise there, but not too much compromise. And how do I not lose myself and you not lose yourself? But then we're more than the sum of the parts. The whole is more than the sum of the parts. How does that work? That's not easy. And this is where her soul really wants her to spend most of her time and most of her energy and most of her quest, because that's where her genius will reside. And when I look at that, and then I say, I'll finish her arc of intimacy and then go back into her vocation. So her arc of intimacy ends in Pisces. And so Pisces is that we are all one. There's this tremendous sweetness and this compassion and a romance and a softness here. But yet you kind of have to go to the mountaintop before you get there. And so a lot of times what people will do is they'll start off in that falling in love sign and go immediately to the intimacy sign. And I'm not talking about sexual intimacy. I'm talking about just, heartfelt intimacy. Because it's so easy to do when you're falling in love. You're like, oh my God, I'm fascinated with you. You're the best thing that ever, right? And then like, a few months later, you're like, yeah, no, what I loved was not so awesome. So how do you have that natural, honest, truthful expression of that? How do you have the acceptance and the allowance of that? And how do you find yourself before you enter a relationship so you can be healthy, but then how do you find yourself during relationship over and over and over again? Because that's what that scorpionic fourth house wants. And so she's not going to be easy to love, but she's going to be intoxicating and enchanting to love. And so for her to know that about herself and not to accept anything less than, and recognize that it's going to be doesn't have to be a constant pursuit where it's like that, kicking the can down the road. You can never kind of get to that point, but there is going to be some complications, probably incredible complications before she gets the satisfaction for that. So if I were reading directly for her, I would talk about like for her to be able to know herself and her, I'm going back to her son, her hidden gifts, her hidden talents, to know herself without being Selena Gomez, with just like who is she at midnight? Who is she in those quietest moments? And then how does she love to be loved? And what is she interested in being loved? And then how does she want to be cherished and beloved? And how can she open and heal all this past soul DNA wounding and her familial wounding in order to be able to appreciate what a gift she is for the universe. Now, that could be part of her vocation if she wanted it to be. She doesn't have to be. Like, it's not like she's going to be leading people into how to become, how to be loved and whatever. We don't want to put that on her. That's way too much. Like, no. But to be a role model for an interdependent love. Ooh, that would be really cool. So again, she's in her own lane, she's living her own life, but yet, because she is in the spotlight, she's chosen to do that at an early age. There's nothing in this chart that says she should leave the spotlight. Absolutely not. Unless she didn't like it anymore, right? Unless she didn't want to do it anymore. When I go into her past life story, because those come in too, and when I look at it from a star reading perspective, I'll look at it through those ecliptic nodes that I was talking about before. I will never leave behind Pluto, or in this case for her, that Saturn in Aquarius, because it's so important on her chart. When I gathered that information, the first life that came through was quote unquote Anglo-Saxon. It was more in that British energy. And so I could see her with a reddish uniform with epaulets and, buttons down her jacket in the front and, like pantaloons or something. So I don't know. Am I in the early 1800s, late 1700s? Sure. And she was young, and she wasn't she wasn't a general. She wasn't a leader. She was young. And so I saw her in a group of people, and they were all dressed the same, and she was protecting the queen. And so I didn't go into any more story than that, because it's not about the queen and it's not about exactly what year. It's more about her and why this life was shown to me. And it was shown to me because she was in a uniform, so she was not identifiable among the others in their uniforms too. Male, youthful. And so the energies that came to me were she was following order. She was following other people's cultural and philosophical and, kind of noble, whatever whatever the rules were, right? She was a soldier. So she was like, aye, this is what I'm doing. And I'm here. She was incredibly happy in this though. There was nothing here that said I'm miserable. The soul, was here and showing me that she can dissolve herself and be unidentifiable from that, again, with that uniform, with that position, part of other people's quest, not her own, which is why it's so important for her to be so independent and have that freedom and to be somewhat unconventional too. The next life that came, and I'll always look for a different gender. So the next life that came, she was a young girl, not so young, like I'm saying like 11, 12-ish, huge family, like just huge family. She was speaking a different language. I don't know what language she was speaking. It could have been one of those Romance languages. It also could have been Arabic too, because I could definitely see that Moroccan kind of flair. And so I could have put her in Northern Africa somewhere, or I could have put her in the Mediterranean. So, and I didn't go deeper. She's not my client. I didn't go deeper than that. And so I'm very careful not to go fully into it because I don't want to disrupt her energy. And so I got a glimpse. And the glimpse that came in was that she was interpreting. So yes, she was young. I could see this family. So there must have been like cousins too, like just lots of family. And she took it upon herself to be the interpreter. So she could speak the two different languages. She's really good at language. She's very gifted with that. She's gifted with words too. So again, I don't know if she's done any writing. If she hasn't, she's very gifted at it and she might want to do that. And so she was, again, interpreting. But there was a mantle of responsibility here. She was the only one who knew the other language. They were in a foreign land, so there was that foreign component too. And so that's where I then went in and I thought, okay, what is the underlying energy here that she would want to redeem, right? Like, so she'd want to unblock. And it was all about getting rid of roles that where you kind of, part of the pack, and also getting rid of chaos. So having those, that calculation, that strategy, the structure, the order is really important to her. So again, she seems really strategic because She's had success, but I don't know if she's utilized that same strategy with her personal life. And it seems kind of cold to do that, but yet it would be really good for her to do that. I'm imagining that her physical autoimmune is almost forcing her to do that from a physical side, but she might want to do that from a love and friendship and camaraderie side too. So, in saying all of that, the three themes that came up for her was that wise elder theme, that falling in love with her life again and again and again, and always seeking that hidden treasure and letting go of things that aren't even hers and be able to like have that bittersweet. There's a transformative energy here as you're climbing up that summit. I'm in her Capricornian part of the arc of intimacy of being able to find what truly matters. So sometimes there is forgiveness, sometimes there's letting go, certainly for self-criticism. Now, I don't see that over much, but I could see how that could be something as she's had so much success in portions of her life and then relatively not in others. Now, I did say that I glimmer the incarnation cross for the human design, and it is in that right angle cross of laws. So this is where her being a storyteller, sharing your insights, being that wanderer for that cross-cultural travel, being able to experience lots of different things in life is really beautifully enabled when she has that order and structure because she can push through limits and move into acceptance. So that is the star reading for Selena Gomez. I will be doing a handful of others, and hopefully this gives you insight into how giving the stars can be, because I'll be honest with you, I've barely brushed the surface. So, as always, thank you so much for subscribing and for reviewing. And if you like this, celebrity look, let me know, and I will make sure that I do even more than I'm planning on. And as always, happy soul tidings.
Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more ways to use the stars strategically to align with your soul purpose, reclaim your power, and increase your prosperity. Please rate and review your favorite episodes, and remember to check out my website at kimwoods.com for my latest forecasts, articles, and offerings. To find out your intuitive success signature, take my 12-question Do You Know, Like, and Trust Yourself quiz and find out how you're living your stars at yourstarmaptosuccess.com. I've so enjoyed our time together as it's filled with the power of the stars plus strategy to clear the pathway to your success. Until next time, happy soul tidings.